Now we're finishing the this Torah portion called Parshas Titzaveh, where God commands Moses to have the garments of the priests made, the garments of the priests. And we discussed this in the last 3 days. We discussed all the garments that the priests have. That the priests have this turban. The high priest has this turban, and it's made of a cloth that's 16 amos long, which is what, 24 feet long. And then there is a sash, which is 32 amos, which that comes out to be what, like 40 something feet long. And they wrap this around. And then there is pants, and there's an inner cloak, and then there's a cloak on top of that that's blue, and then there's an apron which is reversed, and then there's the breastplate. We said there was the Choshen Mishpat, and it had all these rings on it and things that were held it down, and then there was a plate on the head that was called a tzitz. Remember, we had all those, we talked about all those yesterday. Last 2 days we've been talking about it. Okay, now, after we've talked about making all of these garments for the Kohen, now Moses is going to inaugurate Aaron and his sons to serve in the temple. Now, to serve in the temple, you have to be a special person. You have to go through a special inauguration process, not initiation, I guess, but process, in order to work in the temple. And this is what he is. Now, we're going to go through this pretty fast because there are a lot of details here, and the details are very, very relevant to back then. And they will be really relevant in the third temple. But they're not really that relevant in actuality right now. So let's go. It says, God to Moses, this is the thing. And then finally, we're going to learn two interesting things. There was the constant offering that was made every day on the outside altar. That was made of brass, and it was much bigger. And then finally, after all this business is finished, we're going to learn about how to make the inside altar, which that should have really been last week. Last week, Torah portion talked about the vessels. And now we're talking about the garments. And all of a sudden, at the end of the whole thing, is stuck this law about one of the vessels. Why? We're talking about the garments. Why? So there's reasons why, and we'll explain it. Let's try to do this as quickly and efficiently as possible. Says God to Moses, this is the thing that you should do to them. In other words, to Aaron and his sons. The Kadesh Otam, to sanctify them. Now there were only 5 Kohanim. There was Aaron and his 4 sons. And 2 of them on the first day that the tabernacle opens up, which is the first day of Nisan, they get killed. They rush in, they can't hold themselves back, and they get strangely killed by 2 streams of fire going to their nostrils, because they went improperly into the Holy of Holies. But in any case, this is Aaron and his sons. What should they do? Okay, now we're going to little bit quickly. First of all, V'lakach par echad ben bakar v'ayalim shnayim tamimim. You take one a cow, and which is a cow, and 2 rams, and they have to be unblemished. Right, now let's go back to this again, because we're going back to this idea of the sacrifices. I mean, we've been building this tabernacle, and it's been very interesting, and the different measurements of all the vessels and then the camp. But you have to remember, the whole purpose of this whole business is to make sacrifices. They kill the animals. They were killing animals. Okay, what is this thing of killing animals? How does this work? Killing animals, how is this part of Judaism? So the answer is it's a commandment. And it doesn't really make that much sense. I mean, there is a certain amount of sense that you can make from it, but basically, how killing animals is doing God's will. It's the same thing, putting on tefillin. How is that God's will? The whole entire tabernacle, how is that God's will? It is. That's what God said on Mount Sinai He wants us to do. Why He wants us to do? There's people that have various explanations and how do you say, motivations for the interpretations, for the reason. But the main thing involved here is that this is what God wants us to do. And there's very deep Kabbalistic reasons behind it, etc. And there's midrashic reasons and homiletic reasons and etc. reasons which are behind it. But all of those reasons are just sort of, by the side. The main thing is to actually do it. Actually do it. And here we're talking about God. So you're doing what God wants. So God is not so logical. I mean, if you think about it, God makes us, right? That's what we believe. So is it logical we have to have two eyes and the eyes have to be in our head? Why can't we have like one big eye or 50 eyes all around our head? Why not have, so that's the way God decided. And it's built, like I say, according to these very deep Kabbalistic principles, which give us a certain deep insights as far as this goes. And it's a very good thing because we have to try to understand as much as we can. That's the main thing of Judaism. Shema Yisrael. Shema means understand. We have to try to understand God as much as possible. But after all, even if we don't understand, and of course, in order to understand, you have to ask questions. You have to ask other questions. But Judaism does not depend on the answers. The main thing is to do what God says. So here we go. Here are things that are really not understandable. In order to inaugurate Aaron and his sons, so you have to take one par, a cow, and two rams. Rashi says, why take a cow? This is to bring forgiveness on the golden calf, which also was a cow. And we have the dat zakenim. He says, why do we have to bring these two elim, these two rams? What's that got to do with inaugurating? He says, because this corresponds to the three Abras, Abram, Yitzchak, Yaakov. And there's a ram over here, one ram on the right, ram on the left, and the cow in the middle. Why three? Because corresponding to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. The cow corresponds to Abraham, like it says, Ve'ela bakar ratz Abraham, like it says when Abraham, the three angels came to visit Abraham, so he went to the cattle and slaughtered one for them to eat. Elim, this corresponds to Yitzchak and Yaakov. And also there's bread. This is going to be the bread. Lechem matzot. 3 types of bread you have to bring for the Kohen, also for this inauguration. Lechem matzot and chalot, and matzot soaked in. Lechem matzot, chalot matzot belulut b'shemen. First of all, there's bread of what's this called matzot, and then there's chalot matzot, thicker matzot. They're soaked in oil, and rikiki matzot meshuchim b'shemen. And then there's cakes which are matzot, which are smeared with oil. You have to make them from solet chitim, the best type of wheat. Okay, so he says why. So now we know why the 3 animals. What about this 3? It says 3 different types of bread. That corresponds, the 3 different types of bread, that corresponds to what, when the 3 angels came to visit Abraham, so he took, he made 3 loaves of bread. It says shlosh se'im kemach. He took 3 measures of flour to make bread. That corresponds to the 3 types of bread that are here. Okay, etc. He goes into it more and more, but this is all this is connected to the great work of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Now, what did Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob do? What was so great about them? What was great about them was that every moment of their lives and every fiber of their being was devoted only to do what God wants in this world. Whatever God wants in this world. And because of that, they were the founders of Judaism. Okay, you should put them into one basket and sacrifice them together with this cow and the 2 sheep. What do you mean you should do? What does it mean you should sacrifice them? You don't actually burn them yet. You bring them into the outer courtyard. And Aaron and his sons, you have to bring close to the opening of the Oil Moed. Oil Moed, that's the place where the what's called the outer tent, the tent of the meeting, and you have to wash them with water. What does it mean, wash them? You put them in a mikveh, tovel them. Where was a mikveh in the middle of the desert? You have to remember that they had the well of Miriam. There was the rock that was spurting out water for everybody, so you could just immerse them in that. You have to take their garments, put the garments on Aaron, and now he makes a big list of what the garments are: the katonet, the me'il, the ephod, the meal. I'm sorry, the me'il, the cloak that was put for the ephod, and the ephod is that apron, and the choshen, and you should tie it with the cheshav ephod. That's these two straps that are there, and you put on the mitznefes. The mitznefes, that's the hat on his head, and put the Nezer HaKodesh. The Nezer HaKodesh, that's the tzitz, that piece of gold that says Kodesh Lashem. And put that, and then you take oil and you pour it on his head and you anoint him. But it says you make it like the shape of like an L on his head, something like that. Where do you do it? You put it on his head and between his two eyes, and you join them in the middle. His sons also, you have to bring them close and put them also, they also have garments, and put them with an avnate, Aaron and his sons, etc., and put them hats on them also. And now you sacrifice this cow in front of the Oil Moed on the altar, the outer altar, and Aaron and his sons, they put their hands on this cow before they slaughter it, and they slaughter it in front of God in the entrance of the Oil Moed. Again, the Oil Moed is that outer room where the menorah is, and that face bread. The menorah is on the left, and the face bread is on the right, and in the middle is the altar. Then you take from the blood of the cow, and you put it on the corners. You remember the shape of the mizbeach, the corners of the mizbeach. Let's see, maybe I think we had this before, but you know what? I'll do it again here. Let's see if you get the picture of this. Here, let's see if this is good. Yeah. All right. Can you see this now? Is this visible to you? Or no? Is there a change at all? No. Here. There is the altar. Let's see if we find the altar here. This is terrible. This is terrible what this is. Okay, here we have the. Do we have a picture? You can see sort of over here. Now, here's a very interesting thing, by the way. This is, they got right. They put the stabs here, but this they did not get right. This picture is wrong. There's not one on each corner. It's the same thing as here. There's one ring here, one ring. We're going to learn this in the end. This is the golden altar. But the golden altar, you can't see it properly, but there are, I haven't got the pictures here. You can see there's like little towers in the corner. Do they have the outer altar here? We can have a picture of the outer altar. I thought it would just pop right up. We could just continue learning, but looks like I was mistaken. Some of these people really go wild with their imagination, and this doesn't have anything to do. All they have to do is just read the Rashi. Hey, look at the showbread. Terrible picture. What's this got to do with anything? It's supposed to be two things up. How can they draw a picture like this and go to sleep. Okay, what are you going to do? Here, the stabs are supposed to be here. See, these pictures are all messed up. This is supposed to be straight. Come on, fellows, let's make the pictures. You're going to make a picture. Why not just look at the... Okay, where is the altar? Where is the altar? Why do I get everything except for the altar? Why? Why is this happening here? So there are... Okay, these are sort of wacky pictures over here. This is supposed to be, the corners are supposed to go straight up. For some reason, I got this idea of flapping down. I don't. All right, here's a picture of this is supposed to be in the middle here. Well, we got every other picture except for the picture that I'm looking for. Look at this. I'm looking for the picture of the outer altar. Anyway, you can see that on the corner of this, there are these four like towers, sort of. The towers. It's only like about 1 foot high or something like that. But nevertheless, that's where they are. Okay, let's go back to where we were before we go. All right, take on the point. You put it on the corners of the altar. There we had the picture that I showed you was the golden altar. This is talking about the bronze altar, the copper altar, which is outside. Put it on the corners. You take the parts of the animals. Okay. You slaughter one of those rams that he had. You take its blood, and you also put it on the altar. Put the blood on the altar, and you cut it up into its parts, and you wash it, and then you burn it. Burn it on the altar for God. Reach nichoach, there's a pleasing spirit for God. And here we have this is Rashi says, what does it mean? A reach nichoach, nachat ruach. Says Rashi, it is a pleasing smell to God. Reach, a smell, nichoach, that is pleasing. And he says not just a smell, but nachat ruach, God gets pleasure. Lefanai, God says, I get pleasure. She'amarti, when I do something, menaseh rotzoni, and my will is done. When you do it, and especially in the sacrifices. So that's what I'm saying. Sacrifices don't make any sense, and we do it because God says, and this gives God pleasure. Does that make any sense that God gets pleasure? Well, I mean, it makes as much sense as to say that God has a will. You know, God creates the world. He gave us the Torah. The Torah is His will. So when you see that God does have some sort of human traits, right? He gave us the Torah, creates the world. He wants to do it. The Torah just didn't come out, from His ear or something, just, automatically or something. The Torah was God's will, God's essence, God's wisdom, right? So we see God has will and He has wisdom. So here we're saying, the Torah says that God gets pleasure. You do what God says, He gets pleasure. Okay, we're still not finished with this inauguration. Now, this inauguration is going to be 7 days. 7 days, this whole thing that I'm telling you now is repeated. You have to take the other ram that we talked about, and Aaron and his sons put their hands on it. They press their hands on it, and you slaughter that. You take its blood, you put it on the ear of Aaron and his sons, and on their right thumb, and on their right big toe, and you throw the blood on the altar around. Right? Don't do this at home. This is only for the Kohanim, the high priests in the temple. You take the blood that was on the altar and some of the oil that you had, the oil, and you smear it on Aaron, and you sprinkle it on Aaron and his sons, and Aaron and his garments, and on his sons, and the garments of his sons with him, and he becomes holy, and his sons also become holy with him. You take that ram that you just slaughtered, and you take parts of it. Here it tells what the parts are, different parts of the chalev, fats inside of it. And you take a loaf of bread and lechem shemen echad, and rikich echad, the same three types of bread we had before. And you put all of it in the hands of Aaron and in the hands of his sons, and they lift all these things up in front of God. Then you take these breads from their hands and you burn them on the altar. This also is a pleasing smell before God. Reach nichoach l'Hashem. And again, Rashi repeats the same thing. Lanachat ruach. This is pleasure to God, to the one who spoke and his will was done. So Rashi wants to really impress upon us that these things that are done actually are pleasing to God because we're doing what God said. Anyway, you take part of this, the chest, whatever, of this ram, and you lift it up, and part of the leg of the lamb, and etc., and you lift them up in front of God. And then Aaron this will be a statute for Aaron and his sons for the Jewish people, because this is an elevation in front of God from all of their sacrifices that they make to God. An eternal. And it says, L'chok olam me'ed b'nei Yisrael, this belongs to the Jewish people, that when the Jewish people bring what's called the shlomim, which is sort of a free will offering, then part of it goes to the owners, they eat it. The garments that are Aaron and his sons, you have to anoint them, and they also now are appointed to use in the service of the Holy Temple. 7 days. Shivas yomim yilbash hakohen tachtav mipanav. 7 days you should put these garments on, that they will come into the tent of meeting to serve in the holy temple, tabernacle in this case. Okay, so he says not only that, but any one of Aaron's sons, when Aaron passes away, so the one of his sons, only one can do it. One of his sons becomes the high priest. He has to be re-inaugurated. The other priests don't have to be inaugurated. A person who is born from a priest, he's a regular priest, and a regular priest, they don't have to be inaugurated. But Aaron does have to be inaugurated. Every new high priest that comes in has to be, as it says, we learn from this, she'im yesh lo kohen gadol, if the high priest has a son that fills his place, because usually they try in Judaism that the son takes over the position of the father. So nevertheless, he has to go through this whole process again. Okay, so he takes this ayil, another ram, and he boils it, and Aaron and his sons, they eat this together, this boiled meat together with the bread in the entrance of the tent of meeting. And this will bring forgiveness. And no one else can eat this bread because it is holy. So that's what it means. It will forgive them. Call zarot v'tiyuv, any improper thing that they have ever done. This brings them forgiveness, because you have to realize these people, and they were watching themselves like from the day they were born. If there's left over from the meat or from the bread, until the morning you have to burn it, and don't eat it because it is holy and it has a special time it has to be eaten. You should do to his sons, Aaron and his sons, this way. Everything I commanded you, 7 days, you have to inaugurate them. Repeat this whole process, 7 days, everything that I said. And you have to make a special sin offering of a cow to forgive them, and for forgiveness, and a chatas, a sin offering on the altar. So Rashi says this forgives also on the altar itself from any bad thing that has happened to it. Like it says 7 days, it has to be. So this, if there's any mistake like that's made in all these offerings that were made, so this brings forgiveness for that. And you have to then inaugurate and smear oil on the altar to anoint it also, like we said before, 7 days. You have to also do refinement and inauguration of the outer altar. And it will be Kodesh Kodashim, it will be completely relegated for only holy things. That's what it means. What does it mean that we'll call it? So he says, what is the holiness that even, he says, what is the holiness that any sacrifice brought up on the altar, even if it was brought up improperly, nevertheless, it can't come down anymore. It has to be burnt there. It has to be burnt. So, right, even if there was something that was improperly brought up, in treifa, impure animals, or animals that weren't slaughtered properly. That's right. Anything that goes up on the altar, even if it's a mistake, it is kodesh and it has to be burned up on the altar. You can't take it down and use it for any normal, regular purpose, feed it to your dog or something. All right, now we're going to learn about the purpose, the first practical purpose. Now, up to now, we've just been talking about things that were relegated to these 7 days of inauguration. And now we're going to talk about what is the ordinary use of the altar. And this is also going to be done the 7 days of the inauguration, but it's going to carry on for the rest of the time that there's a holy temple. This is what has to be done on the altar. 2 sheep, 1 year old, shnayim layom tamid. Every day there has to be 2. One of them you do in the morning. One of them you do bein arbayim. Arbayim means right after, in the afternoon. The afternoon is the last thing that's done in the temple. And the temple is also the sheep. This is what's called the constant sheep. And you also have a certain amount of flour that's mixed in oil, crushed oil. Like we said before, this is not the first oil that comes out. First oil that comes out of the olive that's used for the menorah. All the oil that comes out afterwards. You take what's called a reva ayin, whatever it is, a quarter of a gallon or something. And you also have wine, revi tahin, wine, for each one of the sheep. What do they do with the wine? The wine is poured down. Here it says, the sfalim. The wine that was on the corner of the altar, the corner which was facing the holy. The altar was outside, right? It was outside of the tent of meeting. But the side that was there were 2 funnels. One of them had a very narrow spout that came down. One of them was wider. The one that was wider, that was where you poured wine in. And the one that was narrow was used only in the holiday of Sukkot to pour water in every day. So that's what his nesach means. It was poured into the sfalim, into one of these 2, or does it say? Nesach. In one of these 2 funnels, like we learned in Masechet Sukkah, there were 2 funnels. One was of silver on the side of the mizbeach, on the side of the altar, and etc. Just like I explained to you, put wine into one of them. What about, that's what you do to the first offering. You offer in the morning. The second one you do bein arbayim. You do the last thing of the day. Bein arbayim, michas haboker. This is like a couple of hours before sunset. This is a constant offering for all the generations, and the entrance of the tent of meeting in front of God, that's where the altar was. I will meet with you there, and I will meet with you there for the Jewish people, and it should be holy for my honor. That's where the Shekhinah will rest. It says, don't say for my honor, but for the ones that I honor, the honorable ones. What does it mean? Who are the honorable ones? This is hinting at the two really honorable ones. These are the two sons of Aaron that rushed into the Holy of Holies improperly because they wanted to be close to God, and they died. It says that they sacrificed their lives for God. Nikdash b'kavodi. V'kidashti et be'oel moed, and I will make holy this tent of meeting and the altar and the ark. I'm sorry, big mistake. And Aaron, the brother of Moses, Aaron and his sons, I will make them holy to be holy for me. The inner holy of holies, God doesn't have to make it holy because it's already holy. It's put the tablet, the tablets are there. The tablets came directly from God, so they were holy. V'shachanti b'toch bnei Yisrael, and I will dwell among the Jewish people, and I will be for them as a God. They can go there, and they'll see that they are God's people, and you will know that I am God, their God, and that took them out of Egypt, and I will dwell within them. I am God, their master, if you want to say. I am God. That's what he's saying. I am God. I took you them out of Egypt. Why did I take them out of Egypt? Rashi says, on the condition that I will dwell among them. That's why God wanted them to leave Egypt. Okay, now we're going to this Mizbeach Ketoret, and I'm sort of hesitant to show you a picture because the pictures are really off the wall here, but maybe we'll get lucky and we'll get a good picture, huh? Let's see, what do they have all these strange pictures over here? Okay, here we go. Once in a while you hit the jackpot, you get an accurate one. Okay, now we're talking about this altar. Now this is an accurate picture. This is an accurate picture, right? This is accurate. This is in the tabernacle. In the tabernacle, this whole thing was 30 amos long. We said an amos is about 1.5 feet, 30 amos long. This is the holy. This is where the ark was, right? This was 10 amos long. It was 1/3. And the poles are exactly the length of this. It pushed out a little bit here. Moses would stand here, and God would speak to him. The voice would come from between the two. There were the two statues over here. It would come here, but Moses wouldn't see anything inside. You couldn't look inside, but he would hear the voice coming out. And this, we said, was the menorah. This is the face bread. And here is going to be the golden altar. That's what we're talking about here. This is the golden altar. Maybe can we look at this? Can we see it? Oh, is this a good picture? Yeah, this is not bad. Although all of it is something wrong. The arms were straight. There's no opinion anywhere that says that the arms were curved. Okay, the arms are straight. Here we got a nice picture. Even though these were supposed to be higher. Oh, everyone has some little thing. Okay. But here, this is not bad. Here we have, this is the altar, the golden altar. Oh, here we got the golden altar. Let's see if we can get a little. See, this is also not right. The stabs are supposed to go like this, see? All right, okay, look, come on. What are you having this idolatry here? This is incredible. How did they stick a thing like this? Well, this is really just so, really sick, these guys. This is the table with the bread on it, huh? This is what it looked like. This is a good picture. Oh. Here's a good picture. This is the face bread. This is not right. The staffs are supposed to be like this. But here, this looks like this might be something worthwhile here. Let's see if we can get this. Can we get it? No, we can't. No, we missed it. Okay. All right. It looked something like this. I guess this is the best picture we're going to get, huh? Terrible. Why do they get these things? This is what they call, what do they call it? Poetic license. Huh? Okay, here, this is what we're looking for. What is this? See, how do they, I don't understand how these guys do it. This altar of the incense is supposed to be here. And not only that's not supposed to be here. This took up 1/3, right? That's where the ark was. This was supposed to take up 1/3. The candelabra is here. The showbread is here. And this altar is supposed to be here. And this 1/3 in the front is empty. That's how it's supposed to be. Somebody decided to stick it over there. Who knows? What are you going to do? You got... All right, it was a mistake to try to look for that. Yeah. What's this, huh? Totally not right. Furniture. Yeah. What are they sticking idolatry in? This is really just bizarre. Huh? Bizarre. All right, made a mistake. What can we do? All right, sorry I did that, my friends. I made a big mistake. Let's go. Okay, this is what we got. This is the best picture we have over here. This is the golden altar. The golden altar has 4. Can you see anything here? We got 4 corners, like 4 little towers over here. The altar itself was not that tall, right? The golden altar was not that tall. Okay, we're going to see the measurements soon. And there was a rim around the top, and it was made of wood, but it was coated with gold. And interestingly enough, the outer altar was not coated with anything. It was hollow, and the top of it, there was no top. It was dirt. They put dirt in it. The outer altar. That's this altar here. This altar was hollow on the top. Okay, let's go back to the text and let's see what we're doing over here. The Asita Mizbeach, you can make a altar, a small altar, to sacrifice on it incense. And it should be made from Atze Shittim, and it should be made from Shittim wood. Ama Arko should be 1 Ama long, Ama Rachbo, Ravua Yev Amotayim Komoto, and it should be 2 Amas tall, so a little bit shorter than the ark. The ark was 2.5. It wasn't 1.5. I'm sorry. So it was taller than the ark. The ark was 1.5 amas tall. 1.5 amas, and this was 2 amas tall. Mimenu karnotov, and also there were the corners of it. Also, those 4 towers over that went into the measurement of the 1.5 and of the 2 amas that it was. You should cover the whole thing with gold, and also the roof, and the walls, the sides, and those towers that went on the 4 corners, and make also like a sort of an ornament, like how do you say an ornament of gold that went all the way around it. But that went around on the top. If I could find a decent picture, I would point it to you, but I can't. I didn't find. I probably could, but I didn't find one. I found one before the class. You believe it or not, I mean, I did have a nice picture, but I thought maybe there was something nicer, so I lost the whole thing. There has to be 2. Oh, so here he says, Rashi says, this golden altar, this small golden altar, it had a roof. It had a top, but the big copper altar did not have any top to it. It was hollow. It was like almost, there was like a box. It was hollow, and they would fill it with dirt every time they would camp. And it was on this dirt. Of course, in the Holy Temple, it wasn't that way. They would fill it with dirt. And they made this zer zahav. They made this sort of around the sides of it. Let's say if this is the altar, around the sides of it, they made this sort of protrusion that went up. It was like a crown that went all the way around the side. And this was a sign of Keter Kahuna, the crown of the priesthood. You put 2 rings on each of the sides. On the 2 of its sides, make 2 on the side. Here. It says, this what it means. It says, Oyamase tabaot elu, lebatim, lekol bayit tia tabat levad. That there were, I'm sorry, one second. It said, Rashi says, I'm sorry, I skipped this. There should be 2 rings. What does it mean, 2 rings? On one side, there should be 2 rings, and on the other side, al shtei zeviot shebestates adadav. The 2 sides, there should be 2 rings. Should we go back to this? Let's try our luck again with this picture and see if we can find something that's normal here. See, this is the golden altar, right? This is a picture of the golden altar. You might think that you should put 1 ring right in the middle and another ring in the middle, and there'll be just 2 rings altogether. And then you put the pole through it and you carry it. It says you don't do it that way. There has to be 1 ring in each corner so that you can put the poles and you can carry it. It seems that in the ark, this is a bad picture of the ark because the poles weren't this way. It's a mistake. The poles were supposed to be on these sides. Why? So that 2 people could get into the middle and carry it. Here, it's supposed to be like this. The poles weren't down on the bottom. They're supposed to be up higher, but nevertheless, it's supposed to be like this. So that 2 people can get into it, and they can carry it on their shoulders. That's the way it's supposed to be. But here it seems that only 1 person could get into it. Because it was only 1.5. Why? That's what it said. So 1 person could go into it. But that's what it looked like. There was a rim around the top. If you can see that, a rim around the top. You can't see it very well because I wanted a bigger picture. And then there were the poles on the side. Okay. So there's the Kli Yakar, which I wanted to sort of read, but I'm not going to read it. I'll just tell you. He says, why is it that God waited with this vessel until the end? Why did he wait until the end? Why did he put this with all the other vessels? So he said, because all of the other vessels, that's what the Kli Yakar says. Where is that Kli Yakar? It is over here. Here. It's over here. Why did he wait? So he said the reason that he waited. Oh, so here, first of all, here's a very nice Kli Yakar. It says the reason there has to be 2 altars. On the outside, there's this big bronze altar, and on the inside, there's a small golden altar. On the outside, there was big fire, and here there was a small fire. It says the outer altar, that corresponds to what's called the animal soul, and sins that people did with their animal soul in their body. And the inner one is, this takes care of sins which people had with their attitudes. And this whole thing is to elevate, because it says that's the whole idea. It gives an elevation to the godly soul. That's a beautiful answer that he gives. And he also gives an answer, why isn't this with the other vessels? So because the purpose of this vessel is not like the others. All the other vessels were there to make God revealed in the world, to do what God wants, to make God revealed here in the world. That's what he says. And this is more like thanksgiving. It's recognizing that God reveals himself, and it's giving, a recognition to God that we see what you're doing, God, that you're resting yourself in this, and we're responding with the incense. That's what he says. Okay, so it says, don't offer it on this altar any strange incense or anything else, only the exact incense that I tell you. And God, and he says, when does Aaron offer it? It says Aaron offers it in the morning, every morning, when he fixes up the candles. That's when he offers up this incense. Every morning, once a day. Right, once a day. And it's forbidden to put any strange in. And Aaron there, he will Then after that, Aaron takes incense into the Holy of Holies once a year. That's what he says. He puts blood. Aaron takes a sacrifice once a year, and they put the blood of the sacrifice on the corners, on those little towers, we said, on the corners of the altar. This inner golden altar was only for incense, but once a year they put blood on it to bring forgiveness for any mistakes that were on it, and that's Yom Kippur. And Yom Kippur, and we'll see that later on in the book of Leviticus, it says that he takes one of the, takes a cow and a goat on Yom Kippur, he mixes the blood together, and he puts it on the corners of this golden altar. That's the only time that it's used. Kodesh Kodashim, what does it mean it's Kodesh Kodashim? It's not Kodesh Kodashim, it's in the Kodesh. It's not in the Holy of Holies, but it says it's holy, means that this altar is holy only for these things, just for the incense, and once a year they put blood on it, and for nothing else. That is Parshas Tetzaveh. Tomorrow, God willing, we'll learn the prophecy. That's the Haftorah of Ezekiel, where he describes the third temple. Third temple. Don't miss it. Be with us tomorrow at 3:00. But tomorrow morning, 8:15, we're learning Chassidus. Have a good day with Mashiach now.